So, is eccentric training better than normal training for building muscle and building strength? Well, in this video, that's exactly what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the research behind whether or not it's worth your while to be doing eccentric overload training. So firstly, what is eccentric training? Basically, this is what people call the negative part of a rep. So if you were doing a bicep curl, obviously the concentric is where you're coming up, and the eccentric, the negative, is on the way down. You look at calf raise, the concentric is on the raising up, and then the eccentric is on the way down. So the eccentric basically is when the muscle is lengthening under load, which we know already. A lot of people say, the gym bros say, that the eccentric is very much the most important phase for building muscle, where you cause more muscle trauma, more muscle damage, which obviously will cause signaling effects to make the muscle grow. So if you were going to do eccentric work, say for a calf raise, simply what you would do is you use both legs to raise up, doing the concentric with both sides, and then you switch onto one leg and lower down under control with the other side. Now the beauty of this is that you can actually load heavier with the eccentric, because obviously if you were to try and lift with the one leg with the weight that you're going to lower, you wouldn't be able to do it. And the reason this is because a concentric contraction, in terms of what you can lift, the power output if you like, is actually less than what it is on an eccentric. Research has actually found it's anywhere from 25% to 50% increased loads can be taken with eccentric load training. So that means you load up the bar with a weight that you can lift with two legs, but you couldn't lift with one leg alone. And obviously if you want to work it out, between 25 to 50% of more load with what you can lift with one leg. So what it means is you get more load onto that muscle. So neurologically it's getting more input, more output therefore, and neurologically the adaptations are going to occur, which is obviously one of the prime triggers, the prime reasons behind getting stronger. Obviously as well you're getting more muscle damage as well. So obviously muscle damage, obviously up to a point, is also going to trigger more of a response for muscle building. Obviously this is what we're saying, but what does the research say? So Friedmann-Bette in 2010 actually did a study where they compared eccentric training to usual concentric eccentric training, and effectively what they found is that the muscle strength increased more in the eccentric training. They also found that it actually triggered more growth for type 2B muscle fibers, so the fastest twitch muscle fibers that you can get. And this makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day the load is so heavy that you can't hold it, so you're going to have to recruit the maximum power output type muscle fibers. So what this means is they obviously extrapolated this and said, well, really this means that one, it's going to be good for strengthening, it's going to be very good for more explosive type work where you need them type of fibers to work. So that's what they found. There are other studies as well. There's actually loads of studies. This is just one that I picked out. So what about hypertrophy? What does the research say for hypertrophy? There are loads of studies on this as well. I picked out one because of who the author was, which is Schoenfeld. And he basically looked in just this year, 2017, he did a study where he compared eccentric training with regards to hypertrophy, so building of muscle. And again, with what I said earlier, that's exactly what they found. They found more muscle growth, more cross-sectional area, a lot more triggers for muscle building were driven by that eccentric overload. So obviously you're creating more muscle damage and therefore more of a trigger on that. So overall, obviously this, I picked several research papers out for this, and it does look definitely that strength can be increased with eccentrics and also hypertrophy muscle building with eccentrics. So I would give it a go. Obviously you can do it with pretty much any muscle. So I mentioned bicep curls, I also mentioned calf raises. So give it a go and see what happens. Like I say, you'll probably get a bit more delayed onset muscle soreness because it'll be much more eccentrically overloading, which is going to cause more muscle damage. Obviously you're not used to it, so be careful. Don't go too mad first of all. Pick a weight that's slightly above what you can do concentrically at first, and then advance more as you go along. The other side to this is, it's pretty good for strengthening tendons and such like as well. So if you think of the calf raise one, your Achilles tendon will get stronger from doing this type of work too. So yeah, if you want to see these references in more detail, they'll be in the description at the bottom. But yeah, as always, keep watching and I'll see you next time. We want to keep making great content for our subscribers, so if anyone would like to support the channel by making a pledge, then we would be extremely grateful, and you can do this on our Patreon page here.